Hi, I'm Danielle, and I'm so glad that you're here because together we're going to work through big stuff. Hello, Imogen, and welcome to Big Stuff.
Hi, Danielle. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, look, honestly, as my very first guest on my very first episode, I'm delighted that you said yes because you obviously have a lot of experience at podcasting, but also you're a bloody nice person. So I feel like I'm in very safe hands, which is awesome. But you're super busy right now because you're undergoing a major life transition. What's going on for you?
Oh, so much. Where do I begin? But firstly, I could not pass you up on this opportunity. Ever since we connected, I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of our story about how we met. But I just absolutely loved talking to you, so I couldn't say no to this opportunity. And I'm so excited for this and for your podcast too, and honoured to be your very first guest.
Woot, woot.
So there's a lot going on for me at the moment. We just graduated from our breathwork certification, so I'm diving into the whole breathwork world. I am currently sitting in my office, which is full of boxes and crap, because I am moving my life to Dubai. So I'm currently in Sydney, Australia, for anyone listening, and yeah, making the big life transition and moving to the Middle East, because why not?
Because why not? And it's such a huge transition because you guys have decided to pretty much get rid of everything and start fresh. You know, you've got a very short time limit to do all the garage sales and do all the markets and to downsize to just a couple of bags and get on out there. It's exciting. Is it exciting? I'm thinking it's exciting. I'm like, wow, that's adventure.
It's exciting and also overwhelming. I tend to get very
Yeah.
overwhelmed quite easily. So this is like my worst nightmare, having to like do so many things all at once. You're just trying to break it down into room by room, day by day, task by task. There's a great saying that always helps me is like, how do you eat the elephant? It's just one bite at a time. And I'm just really bringing myself back to that every time I feel myself spiraling. Yeah, it's a lot though.
Yeah, well, the whole elephant definitely is a lot, but I love that, I do love that saying. So, I mean, the topic of today's podcast really came to me after a conversation you and I had when we were at lunch one day during our breathwork facilitator training. And you shared a little bit with me about some stuff that had gone down in your life that really changed everything for you. Would you like to share a little bit about that time in your life and, what went down?
Yeah, of course. So 5 years ago, I felt like I had my life all figured out. I had just become a mum and I had a 9-month-old baby, and I have a partner who moved over here from the UK, and things felt quite settled for me, which was an unusual thing. I'd often lived quite a chaotic life, moving around, lots of things happening in my orbit. So it felt a little bit strange to be feeling settled for the first time, but it felt good. I was like, I'm ready. I'm 31. This is my time. I felt like that my 30s were it for me. This is going to be the best years of my life. And I spoke too soon. So when my baby was 9 months old, I unfortunately lost my own mum to suicide. And it was a very complex situation. So my mum had never experienced mental health issues. She wasn't someone who suffered from depression. So it came completely out of the blue and turned my entire world upside down. And I went from being a new tired mum to a suicide loss survivor, and I was not prepared for what that looked like. And
I don't think I don't think there would be any preparation possible, it's just so unfathomable. I think, so unfathomable. You're already at such a vulnerable point in your life, and then something unthinkable happens.
Absolutely. And so the story with my mum is something that you just wouldn't read about. It is just so unbelievable, and I'm still coming to terms with it all these years later. So, as I mentioned, she didn't have mental health issues. My mum was a victim of a 20-year coercive, controlling relationship, and it's very difficult to explain this story. Where do I begin? So, about nearly 20 years ago, my mum went to see a psychologist because both of her parents had died within close proximity to each other. She was also going through a period of questioning her sexuality, and she was happily married to my stepdad at the time. And unfortunately, the psychologist that she went to see is another woman, and she groomed my mum into a relationship based on a fabricated story that she'd created specifically to entice my mum into a relationship. She had said that her husband and 2 kids died in a car accident, and basically that she wouldn't survive without my mum. And my mum was an empath, and she was just put on this earth to rescue people. She just wanted to help anybody that she met that needed help. So it was the perfect lie, and it hooked her right in. And my mum thought that she was saving this woman, and she thought that they were soulmates and destined to be together. And she ended up leaving my stepdad, and they were in an intimate relationship with each other, which went on for about 20 years. And it wasn't until 2019 where things started to unravel. And unfortunately, I was the one who started to uncover that things weren't as they seemed. And it was a span of about 2 months from finding out some lies that she had told us to my mum dying by suicide. So everything happened really, really quickly. It all stemmed from a Facebook post that my mum's partner had posted of an old photo of her modeling in Vogue. And I went to my friend's house one evening, and she said, "I don't think that's her in the photo." And I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I just don't think it's her. I feel like I've seen this photo before." And so we ran it through Google reverse image search, and turns out it definitely was not her. It was a very old side profile photograph of Elle Macpherson. And so that was
Wow.
the beginning of the end of a very crazy, fucked up story that unfortunately has become my reality.
And, 20 years is a long time to be in a relationship. And that person was in your life also for 20 years. So how was that experience for you? Because it didn't just happen to your mum.
It's really strange. I lost my mum and I lost my stepmom all in the same. We said I love you to each other. We traveled overseas together. She was there for the birth of my child. I thought we were family, and we didn't actually know who this person was at all, which is a very surreal thing to wrap your head around. And it's just hard to imagine until you're in it that somebody could lie like that and get away with it for so long and not be questioned. But she was a psychologist, so she was very clever. She knew how to build an emotional fence around the story that she'd created so that nobody would ask questions. She was always the victim. If there was any of it odd behavior that we questioned, it would always be excused with the fact that she was living unimaginable trauma, losing her 2 daughters and husband in a car accident. So of course she's a bit loopy. Of course she's a little bit strange. So it was the perfect lie, unfortunately, for us.
I was in a relationship in my late 20s with someone who was living a double life. And when that all unraveled, one of the sort of biggest things, apart from the shock and the grief and the trauma of how it all kind of played out, was a real loss of trust in myself. Like I was like, well, I don't know what is real anymore, what is not real anymore. Who knew what? Also, I was really mindful that there might be people out there that just thought that I was an idiot because everybody knew or whatever. Like, did you have any of those kinds of feelings come up? Or I suppose really your primary issue was like once it all started coming up as confusion, and then suddenly your mum was gone. So like it's like a layer cake of confusion and emotion. And so how did you handle that?
Not
Yeah, sorry, obviously.
yeah, I had a hard time convincing people that what I'd uncovered was the truth. People
Ah,
took a long time to come around to the fact that this could be not all what it seemed. And it is so unbelievable that I can understand why it would have taken them some time. But I feel like I hit a point with it where I had so much clarity. I'm like, yep, this person has a psychological disorder and they're sick and they've done this and it's true. And we need to do everything that we can to, get justice for what she's done to my mum. And people would sort of say, oh, maybe you're grieving, or maybe it's not as bad as it seems. Maybe she's just, the trauma from everything has made her create a few fabricated things, but it's not, like the husband and kids maybe still is true, because how do you prove that? I was really angry, and the anger is what fueled everything for me. So when mum died, immediately I felt I knew what had happened, and the police ruled it straight as a suicide. And I knew that it was much more complex than that. So I did my own investigation. So I was fueled by the anger. I would have, when you watch those crime shows and you've got that crazy person up all hours of the night with the pin board, and
yeah.
that was
I have
me.
to work it out. I have to work
You
it
can't
out.
sleep.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep. And I had a new baby
Yeah.
as well. My daughter was, not even
Unbelievable.
one. And I was
Yeah.
up till 3 o'clock in the morning most nights, just screenshotting things, trawling through years of Facebook, years of text messages, everything to try and piece it all together. And I did. And
Wow.
I ended up I had thousands of pages of evidence in the end, and I had a full timeline of what had happened. And I took all of that to the psychology board, to APRA, and the Complaints Commission, who are the governing body that oversee all of the psychologists and make sure that they're regulated. And I put my complaint in and said, I think there's a very unwell psychologist here, and this is what's happened, and this is what's happened to my mum. Please, can somebody listen to me and do something? Because I wasn't being heard. The police weren't listening to me. In the eye of the law in New South Wales at the time, this person had not broken the law. And I found that so hard to comprehend. And so the only people that would listen to me was the psychology board, which was amazing, because it was the first time I was like, okay, amazing. Somebody's taking this seriously, and it's not all in my head. And now I can take this to other people and say, this is actually happened. Can we start taking it seriously? And I had amazing support from some of my family members and friends throughout this as well, who did believe me and were helping me through everything. And one of my mum's friends hired a private investigator just to get all of my claims substantiated as well. And so it ended up going into their own investigation with the HCCC, which took up to 3 years. Waiting and waiting.
And was that person still practicing in this time?
They'd suspended her
in the investigation.
Yeah.
What was your knowledge? Did you have much knowledge of coercive control prior to this?
Not particularly, no.
Yeah.
And I know a lot about it now. And it was still a fairly new thing that we were learning about. And it was not illegal in New South Wales at the time. And I ended up taking all of the evidence that I had put together, and I was actually part of the parliamentary inquiry into coercive control, which has now got the laws changed. So our story, is part of that as well. So it's gone on to create some change.
Yeah.
To prove.
Unbelievable.
It's so hard to prove. And often when you're a victim, you don't want to speak up, and you don't have the evidence to, and you're like, no one's going to believe you. There's so much shame attached to it too.
Well, and you also, there's a large part of when you're uncovering it feeling like you're actually going mad, because there's a lot of gaslighting involved in coercive control. Could you actually tell us a bit about coercive control, what to look out for, what it, how it kind of manifests, just in case anyone listening might have any suspicions that there's anything sort of strange going on with any of their relationships, whether it's because it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, right? It can be platonic even, or even in a work environment. Yeah. Tell us a bit more about coercive control.
Absolutely. So I think there's a big misconception, even still, that domestic and family violence is physical. So, the posters for domestic violence that you see on the back of the toilet doors, it'll be a woman with a bruised face.
Yeah.
So there'll be physical signs of that abuse. But abuse can be a lot more covert than that, and it can also be very psychological. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical. Coercive control is mainly talking about the psychological abuse that people can have and the controlling behaviors that happen that can make people quite unsafe. And so in my mum's situation, we didn't even know it was happening. It was very subtle as well, that you question yourself. You think, is it me? Am I the one causing this disruption in my relationship or causing these problems? And so some of the hallmarks of coercive control is if your partner is monitoring your whereabouts, looking into your phone, seeing what you're up to, controlling where you can and can't go, having a say in what you're wearing, little things like, well, it's not little things, but big things like that. It can go as far as your partner even tracking where you are, and just you lose your sense of autonomy in the relationship, and they
Yeah.
strip your sense of self-worth, and you don't even know it's happening to you until it's too late. And my mum had no idea. She thought this person loved her. We all did. We thought that it was a great relationship, but there was a lot of manipulation happening and a lot of, I guess, lies to try and keep my mum under her thumb. And
Mm.
yeah, she didn't really have a sense of self anymore.
It's really one of those frog in the pot situations where,
Mm,
we talk about, if a frog jumped into a pot of boiling water, it would jump straight out. But if a frog jumps into a pot of cool water and the water gradually gets hotter, this kind of control, I imagine, happens by degrees, and it happens subtly, and often people don't notice that their autonomy is leaking away bit
mm.
by bit, and then they are often isolated, aren't they? Often isolated, and they've become very dependent on the other person. You mentioned, really wanting to get justice for your mum and how you were a part of the reform for the coercive control laws. Do you feel like that is justice, or something else? Like, do you feel like there should have been jail time?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I absolutely did. I was fighting for a coronial inquest, which didn't happen. And I really think that that should have happened. And I feel like I started to lose a little bit of steam, and I would have kept fighting for it. But it did get to a point in my grief and in my fight for justice where I also needed to engage a little bit more in my life, and it did
Yeah.
start to become a bit of an obsession at one point, which felt unhealthy for me and my family. And I think that's very common for victims of this sort of thing to, yeah, where does it end? What does justice
Yeah.
look like? I was willing to go so far, but it did get to a point where I thought, what's it going to change for me now? And I think I've done all I can. I had just spent, of my life dedicated to trying to fight for justice. And yeah, but I just wanted to jump back to that analogy that you described as perfect. It's so spot on. And there's usually three phases when someone is in a coercive controlling relationship, and it would start with love bombing. So if you're in the early stage of a relationship and someone is too good to be true, it often is, and they will love bomb you. They will tell you everything that you've ever wanted to hear. It'll feel like a soul connection, like your soulmate, like finally that this person gets me, and they're calling you all the time and they're messaging you all the time, and it feels too good. That is a sign that you could be experiencing what's called love bombing. And then it will move into another phase called the devaluation phase, where they'll slowly, really subtly start to chip away at your self-confidence or say little comments to put you down. But you'll think, oh, is it me? And then you'll fight for that attention again, and then they'll give it to you, and it goes around in a circle. It becomes quite addictive. So they'll pull back that love bombing, and then you'll
Yeah.
want
Do
to, yeah,
anything to
you'll
feel
do
it again.
anything to feel it again. So you'll and doing whatever they need you to do and saying whatever they need you to say to make them love you hard again, because it is addictive. And this type of abuse actually does change the chemicals in your brain and rewires your brain, and it does become a really toxic cycle. And so that phase is still very subtle, that you may not even really know that it's happening to you. And then the third phase is the discard phase, which is they push you away completely, throw you out, make you feel like you are nothing and you're worthless, and you will do anything to get that person back, to feel those chemical releases, the oxytocin that you felt in those early days. You'll do anything to feel that again. And it's toxic abuse. And yeah, unfortunately, this situation with my mum was over a very long period of time. I think she just completely lost herself.
I actually spoke with a client just a couple of weeks ago who had been in a very similar scenario and had no idea, hadn't really heard of narcissism, hadn't really heard of, any of this kind of, I want to say subtle and sneaky abuse, right? It's less obvious. And her only thoughts after 3 years of this, and he had just discarded her again for the 6th time or whatever, her only thought was how to get back together with him. And I was like, I actually don't think I can work with you until you're ready to experience something else. I can't help you to get over something that you still want. And of course, there are things that we can do, but it's an addiction. It's like an addiction.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting because it is so deeply painful, but it is that intense love and then taking it away and bringing it back. It's like, it's
It is an
it's a
addiction.
lot.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
with
you Jones for it.
and with psychological abuse, so it's covert. And with physical abuse, it's overt. So you can see it. You can go, well, that person's an asshole. They've just punched me or pushed me, or there's a clear sign that you're in a situation where somebody's done something wrong. But when it's psychological, it is so subtle and so confusing. And the problem is when you take that person out of the situation, they're still in it psychologically. Like, you cannot mentally take them out. So they'll want to go back to the abuser. I think the statistics are like it takes 7 times for people to leave a domestically violent
domestically
relationship.
abusive. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is, and it can't, there, but for the grace of God, it can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone. It's not the others, right? It's not the others for sure.
Yeah.
Tell me about the process of going from this deep grief state to where you are now. Like, what happened for you to create something out of this scenario? Because you very much have your podcast, Good Mourning, you're in your 5th year, is that right? 5th year of that?
Yes, about to be.
And yeah, and you have spoken to some, really amazing people over the time. You've spoken to Gabby Bernstein, you've spoken to psychic Alison Dubois, which I used to love that show, Medium. That was bloody awesome with Patricia Arquette. You've spoken to so many fantastic people and almost sort of created something good or something meaningful out of where you were. So talk to me about that process. Like, how did you get from when my dad died, I hit the couch for a good few months and could not get off, and very, very different circumstances. He had cancer. It was a natural death, for the want of a better. And the process of nursing him through that was beautiful, but also deeply, I suppose, brutal. It was traumatic in its own way. And that rocked me for a number of months where I felt like I couldn't do anything. I felt like I was worthless, useless, all sorts of weird self-esteem things kind of came up. And it really took a bit of time and a decision for me to like, okay, I need to do something now. I need to get off the couch now. I need to something. And that propelled me towards going and learning NLP and having kinesiology. And that kind of took me down this completely new route from being a journalist into the space that I now work in. And I believe that that was like the catalyst for me heading in this direction. And your experience has been a catalyst for you also, would you say?
Absolutely. So I look at, and firstly, I just want to say, yeah, it doesn't matter how somebody dies, nothing can prepare you for it. And it's very, very normal for grief to feel like it knocks your self-confidence and self-esteem. And there is definitely a period where we should all just be allowed to lie on the couch and not even have to shower. It's very, very normal. And we don't really get given that time, which is so hard.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly kept thinking, what about those people who just take a week off and go back to work? I was like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just get on with it? Why can't I be sad? That's what grief is, sad.
Apparently.
Why can't I just be sad and then get on with it? But I was so much more than sad. I was absolutely rocked to my core, and my entire foundation felt wobbly. And everything that I was doing, everything that I thought I was out the window. So tell me what happened for you.
I look at it like there was a light and a dark to that period of my life. So the investigation and all of that was very, very dark, and me not getting any sleep and just constantly trying to piece together what had happened and fight for justice. Like, it was very, very heavy. And
also that sleeplessness, none of that makes you any better equipped to cope with big stuff, right? The more tired you get, the more wobbly, the more emotionally dysregulated you become.
Oh, emotionally dysregulated. And I had a baby.
Everything. It's a perfect storm.
Yeah. I can't actually understand how I managed to survive it, do all of this. Like, it was kind of happening to me, if that makes sense. I was just doing it, and there was no other choice. And I was trying to be a mom and trying to survive for this baby who I now had to look after, and also doing this huge investigation. And then in the midst of all of this as well, I was seeking extra support because grief can feel very lonely. And I went along to a support group for motherless daughters in Sydney, and I met another woman who had lost her mum suddenly called Sal, who I co-host my podcast with. And we hit it off straight away, and we just bonded over the shared experience of sudden loss, losing our mum suddenly. And there was a fire in both of us to want to use our experience to help other people, because we talked for hours about all the things to do with grief, about how it's so much more than just feeling sad, or that it's just your whole body hurts and it's very physical. It's not just an emotional experience, and so many things. I've started a whole podcast about it if you want to explore grief support.
Yeah, go on over, check it out. Good morning. Yeah. And it's not just for the people in grief either. There's a lot of really interesting and fascinating stuff all around the nervous system, all around trauma, all around how to exist in a world that's so big and scary sometimes.
Yes, yeah, we've covered lots, and it's kind of, the podcast has evolved with our grief as well, because I don't know how, but we started the podcast about 6 months into my loss. So I don't even think I could go back and listen to those first early episodes. I'm sure I was so raw and deep in my grief. But what I do love about the podcast is it's evolved with us. It was from the very beginning all the way through to now, and you can hear it in our voice. Like, my voice is much lighter now with the podcast. So it's been a huge journey. So there was a light and a dark for me. So the darkness was all the investigation and everything, and then the lightness was building and creating a community and a podcast to help other people in their loss. I firmly believe that my mum has had a hand in all of this as well, if we want to get a bit woo-woo. But because that was
I love the word.
yeah,
Go fully woo.
that's
All the woo.
yeah, who she was to her core was just somebody who wanted to help people. And I feel like I am doing this in her honor, and it's something that she would have done, and it's something that she would have wanted me to do, and turned the worst thing that's ever happened to me into something good. And
Mhm.
I feel like, yeah, it's a way I felt connected to her, and I've been able to honor her, and it's helped me survive as well as help other people, which has just been amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's such meaningful work that you've done, healing yourself first and then going on and being able to heal others. You know, if you want to talk about healing, not that we, heal per se, we grow around the pain. When we were in the park, I know I said that I believe that my dad and I had a sacred contract. There was something that was, I mean, now we're going fully woo.
I love it.
I believe that in the times before the lives that there are certain agreements made, and that my dad and my relationship was always moving towards that pinnacle moment, which changed my life completely. And it made me think that, that the everything happens for a reason adage, it is true, right? For the want of a better true. It is possible. It is a thing, right? And various times in my life, I know people have said everything happens for a reason. And sometimes it has given me great comfort, and other times I've thought, fuck you. And when we were talking in the park that day, and I said that, you were like, yeah, I kind of think, that this has happened for this reason also. And I know that in your community, the Good Mourning community, there is so much raw emotion, and people are coming to you at various stages of your grief, of their grief. So you don't really talk about things happening for a reason, because it's quite a polarizing idea. And if you're just not ready to hear it or not ready to think about it as a possibility, it just could add more pain. But what do you think about the idea that things do happen for a reason? Or are we just, as humans, are we just meaning-making machines, and we're trying to make sense of something that is really just a chance thing, and then we do something else? Like, what do you think?
Oh, it's a huge topic. I think we are definitely meaning-making creatures. We like to make sense of things. We like to have stories for things. And I also think it can be a way for us to feel a little bit of control in a chaotic world where things happen. And for me personally, I have found so much comfort in the idea that everything happens for a reason, or there's a greater plan at play here. That has helped me in my process. There are so many people that does not help, and it can feel quite dismissive if somebody says that platitude to them, that everything happens for a reason. They could be sitting there thinking, well, what fucking reason?
Yeah.
Why did this
Yeah.
happen? Why did I lose my child? Why did I need to lose my 2-year-old child, for example?
Yeah.
And I completely understand why they would feel that way. And I think it can also be something that people say to try to provide a bit of comfort, but can also do the opposite. It can be dismissive, and it can also almost seem like you're trying to bypass their pain, to kind of rush through their pain to get to a place where they've got to make meaning from what happened. And some people, they need to sit in it for a while. They need to feel that pain. They need to go through that process. And there's no timeline for people's grief as well. So that can take someone years. Or in my case, the pain was very different, but I needed to make meaning almost immediately. So it's so individual. Grief is so individual. So I think it's a phrase that you can't say to other people, I think it's something that you have to find for yourself and a choice that you have to make for yourself, whether that's something that you subscribe to or not. But it's definitely something that's brought me a huge amount of comfort.
I listened to, in my notes here, Jessica McGuire on your podcast, and she said something really interesting about this, which is after you, I'm paraphrasing like 100%, but it's along the lines of after you like have these experiences and it sort of sets you onto a new purpose, that purpose somehow grows larger than the pain of the loss. And then it's not like like I said a moment ago, it's not like you don't feel the pain or you heal from the pain of grief or you heal from losing someone. It's almost like your sense of purpose and the thing that you're doing can grow around the pain and almost cushion it a little bit or enable you to, be able to make some sense and see that something has come from that experience. But do you feel like people just don't know what to say? Like I found often I wanted people just to say something, anything, just acknowledge it. Like I found a lot of people, and I've only had 2 major grief experiences in my life. One was with that boyfriend that I had who lived a double life, and then he attempted suicide and he left my life like that day. It wasn't until years later that we were able to communicate again and sort of make sense of that scenario. So there was a period of time where it was just like an amputation of a person. And I found similarly in both of the experiences that I've had with like deep grief is I didn't know who knew, who didn't know, what do they know, just say something like just even I'm sorry or I heard, or because you don't know if you should say, like it's just so weird. Like we as humans, I think, are really ill-equipped to deal with someone else's grief. I mean, we're bad at dealing with our own grief, but dealing with someone else's grief is awkward at best and awful at worst. How do you suggest, or what do you think is a safe-ish, humane way to approach somebody who is experiencing all of those real, raw, wild, painful feelings?
I think don't try to rush those feelings out the door. If you can learn to sit in the discomfort and sit in other people's pain without trying to fix it, it's fucking hard, but that would be such amazing support for people. I think we are so uncomfortable with death in the West. We don't know how to talk about it. We pretend to our kids that people have gone off to sleep for a long walk, or starts with the children. And what about death and grief? And of course, it's got to start somewhere. There's so much educating to be done still. I really think that we need to be taught about grief and death at schools and how to support people in schools, because it's so isolating and we just don't do death well at all. And I think if you don't know what to say, I completely understand. I was one of those people. Sometimes I still even have moments after doing 5 years talking about grief, and someone will tell me that their loved one died and they'll be like, oh, I hope I don't make them feel worse, especially when it comes to child loss as well. I think that's a really difficult type of loss to support people with, and it can be really isolating for people experiencing child loss. What the most important thing to do with any loss is acknowledge it, no matter what. It's like, just say something, not nothing. If you don't say anything, it's just people feel like that they're not even seen or witnessed, or that they're going through this huge life-altering experience and you can't even acknowledge it. Like, that is so hurtful for people. So just say something. Just acknowledging
I
the
heard
loss.
and I'm so sorry. That's enough, right? I heard and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, this
That's
is
enough.
so unfair.
That sucks.
You can even admit, I wish I knew what to say, but I want to be here to support you. This is so unfair and so hard. Just listen as well. Ask them
Yeah.
questions. Ask them what their loved one's name was. People think that when someone dies, we've got to forget them, or moving on with your life looks like forgetting the person that was here. Like, that's supposed to be healing, but there is so much research out there now that that is not actually healing. Continuing the bond with the person who died and continuing some sort of connection with them is actually incredibly healing. And often you'll find that that's the one name that grievers want to hear, is the person who's no longer here. And I think when we keep talking about the people who aren't here, it actually keeps them alive. So ask them what their name is. Ask them what your favorite memory is with a person, or what were they like as a person. You know, people love to their people. I love it when
Yeah,
people,
absolutely.
you know, ask
As
me
you
about my
say,
mum.
it keeps them alive. It keeps them present to be able to just talk about them. Oh, cool. So that was the postie. So that we got a little bit of dog barking, but that's okay. Have a cough.
Have a
Yep, good
cough, get it out of
opportunity.
the way.
You mentioned a moment ago that we should be teaching about grief and death in schools. And it's interesting because when my father was dying and we were told, go home, I also have to always say dying and died and dead. Dad was like, don't ever say passed away. Don't say I'm passing away. Don't say I'm going anywhere. I'm dying and I'll be dead. I'm like,
Yeah.
cool, Dad.
Yeah.
So when he was dying, I went over, he was living in a remote part of New Zealand, and I took my two small children, because I was a solo parent at that stage, took my two small children to live with him to help him to die in his own home. And we were there for the entire process. You know, Grandpapa was upright and okay and when we arrived, and then it was this process of him quite quickly deteriorating to a point where, you know, he was eventually dead in a short space of time. And the children were really present for the whole thing. You know, we would have movie and pizza night in Grandpapa's bedroom, and he would hide chocolates around his bed, and, you know, they would come and sit and we'd all snuggle and read books. And then after he died, I actually got, in the last couple of nights, I got a Maori nurse called Steve. He was the most beautiful human, come to help me in the night because I was exhausted and I needed help. And he was there on that last night. And after Dad had died, I was like, what do I do now? Like, what? And he was like, it was like about 9 o'clock at night and it was raining. And he said, go and wake the kids up. Go and bring the kids down and we
Wow.
will sit with him and we can say goodbye. That's how we do it in our families here. They actually sit, I think it's called a marae. I might be wrong, but they sit in the marae for a week with their dead and they like eat, talk, hang out, right? There is definitely some sort of sacred behavior, but there's also a lot of just hanging, right? So we did that. We brought the kids down and he chanted this most beautiful Maori song that just came down like a cloak over all of us in this really hallowed moment. And then I put the kids to bed, and then, you know, my husband Nick and I sat there with a bottle of whiskey and drank Jamesons together and listened to the Rolling Stones, which he would have loved. And just being able to have kind of that moment, I think, was really special. And so many people questioned whether I did the right thing. The kids, oh my God, you've traumatized the kids. And maybe there's impact. Sure, maybe. But also there is that sort of deeply human experience that everybody is going to go through. Everyone is going to lose people that they love. And yeah, so I think the way that we do it in the West could definitely do with a little bit more, I don't know, what even is the word?
Grief literacy.
Oh,
Death
yes, good one.
education. Maori
Yeah.
culture is beautiful when it comes to this stuff. We talk about some of it in our book. Actually, I think we could definitely pull from other cultures and
Yeah.
start taking it on, because it normalizes it. And I think we don't know how to support people, and we don't want to talk about it because death is something that we pretend isn't going to ever happen to us. So when it happens, it's
Yeah.
like this thing that nobody wants to talk about or go near. We also think it's contagious. Like if we go and acknowledge that loss, or maybe that could happen to us one day, but it's just ridiculous.
It
None of
is.
us are getting out of here alive, so we may as
Right.
well face.
Every single person we know, where either we go or they go,
Yeah.
everyone, right? There's no getting out of it.
No.
That and taxes, as they say, death and taxes, the unavoidable things in life.
I don't know, but that's no.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, still, just death. So you have been doing some really amazing work in the healing space. You discovered something that was so profound for your own healing journey. And I know I'm saying healing a lot, and I don't want to even make grief feel like something that we need to heal from, but we need to heal, I guess, or we need to move through, let's say, the deeply, wildly crazy part of it so that we can move forward with our lives because we're still here. What did you do? What have you done? What have you found, Im?
Oh, I have done and found so many things. I am very resourceful. If there's something that says it's going to help me, I'm fucking signing up to it. I will try it.
We also know that you're a mad detective. You got mad skills in the detective department. So you be like, right, what is the problem, and how am I gonna get to the bottom of it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it is healing, and I have healed so much since mum died, and I don't think you're ever going to fully heal. And I love that you talked about that we grow around our grief. There's a beautiful theory by Dr. Lois Tonkin, which is the grow around grief theory, and that is that our grief will always be the same size. So our loss, our missing the person, that will always be there, but our life will grow around it with new experiences, meeting new people, trying new things, traveling. It'll start to grow around the pain, and our life becomes bigger. And I think that's a perfect way to describe it. I'm always missing my mum. I'm always thinking about her every single day. I've not stopped thinking about my mum. I talk about her all the time. The pain is still there, but it's softened a lot. It used to be excruciatingly, just unimaginably painful that I thought I wasn't even going to survive. Like there were days where I actually thought like this is going to be the end of me. Like I can't live like this for the rest of my life. It's too painful and too raw. And I lost a lot of hope for the future. I couldn't see a point in living anymore without my mum. And I think it's a normal process that you need to go through. It's really going through the dark night of the soul. Like I was at the depths of despair. And I really, really love the work of Dr. Edith Eger, who is one of the few remaining Holocaust survivors. She's still alive. She's in her 90s. She's a psychologist, and she's absolutely incredible, an incredible human being. And we've had the pleasure of having her on the podcast. She's also an author of 2 books. One is The Gift and one is The Choice. And her work really shifted my perspective on everything. So it's all about you have a choice. You have a choice how to deal with what's happened to you. So she was in Auschwitz. She lost her whole family in Auschwitz. And she, instead of being a victim to what happened to her, she used what happened to her to feel more love, to give more love out into the world, and to feel empathy for the guards that were doing this atrocious things to people. Yeah, a psychological choice that she made to survive. Otherwise, you cannot get through. They're supposed to survive something like that. And I really pulled it from her work. And I remember listening to a podcast with her and Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, and she said, if I can do it, anyone can do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I was like listening to that, feeling like such a victim, being like, why me? Why my mum? Why has this happened to me? And then I completely shifted my mindset and took control over my life again. And the rage and the pain and the anger that I was feeling and the guilt and all of the emotions that were actually going to kill me, I was able to turn into love and turn into compassion and turn into forgiveness. And I completely changed my mind about what forgiveness was. I thought forgiveness was just forgiving the other person, you're letting them off the hook when they do something wrong to you.
No,
Boy, was I
yeah.
wrong.
It's cutting the tie that binds you, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah, that's the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, the Ho'oponopono. I work a lot with my clients with that because, as Nelson Mandela said, holding on to the resentment and the anger not forgiving is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah.
I think that recognizing that any time in life we have a choice in how we move forward and how we choose to feel, even if it takes us a little minute to get there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And you've also been doing a lot of somatic work and a lot of somatic therapies to help, with the actual physical healing throughout your nervous system.
Yes, I have. So that was the kind of big spiritual path that I went down with finding forgiveness and what that meant. And that was a gift that I give myself that freed me from those heavy emotions. I did so much talk therapy. I saw a psychologist, what's the other one? I saw like a forensic psychologist as well, a psychotherapist. Like I was doing all the different forms of therapy, but I still felt awful in my body and I still felt unsafe in my body. I was still ruminating constantly, having nightmares, flashbacks, just feeling really panicky, having anxiety attacks. So I thought, I've done so much work. I'm doing so much work. Why am I feeling better? And I was so grateful through the podcast that we got to speak to some incredible people. And one of those is Rebecca Jacks, who was doing breath work at the time. So this was about 4 years ago. And she came on the podcast. So she lost her brother Jack to suicide. And it was the catalyst for her to discover healing and energy work and breath work. And she introduced us to somatics. And she invited Sal and I to come and do a 5-week breathwork course with her as her guinea pigs before she released it out. And it absolutely changed my life. And I went from just feeling really unsafe in this rattled body to feeling better and more regulated than I had felt even before my mum had died. And to say that is so wild because I'd gone through the worst trauma I could think of and I felt better than I ever felt before because I had generalized anxiety disorder since I was 17. So I had been living in this nervous system that didn't feel safe for a very long time and I'd never addressed the body. I'd done so much talk therapy, but no one had ever told me anything about the nervous system and how it works and how when you experience traumatic things or even small moments when you're growing up, I experienced a lot of divorce as a child and that all stayed in my nervous system and I never addressed it.
Yeah, where do all of these feelings go?
Yeah,
We
the
just tuck
cells
them
in our
away.
body.
I like to say we tuck them away in the little pockets inside our skin, and then eventually they all have to go somewhere. Our little pockets get filled up. They all have to go somewhere, don't they? And this is where we start getting triggered. We start having, this emotional dysregulation. And we start losing it at various times of our lives when the pressure gets a little bit too much to keep our stuff together inside ourselves. So what's next for you?
Just continuing to learn more about the nervous system and somatic work.
Yep.
So we've just graduated. So I held my first breathwork event on the weekend with Sal for 11 women all experiencing grief and loss. And it was so beautiful to hold that space for people. And we're going to continue doing events. And also in November, I'm off to Bali to do my Kundalini energy training with Rebecca, who I mentioned. And I'm so excited because that is a whole nother level of energy healing that I discovered. And I had a session yesterday, actually, and I got you onto it too. But how do we even describe that?
Can't even.
Yeah.
Cannot even. But if you're curious about Kundalini energy, Google. We can put some stuff in the show notes as well. And also those books that you've mentioned. You also have a book too. We'll put that in there. Put that in the show notes. Where can we find you if we want to stay in touch, Erin?
You can find me over at Good Mourning. So we are on Instagram and it's at Good Mourning Podcast, and morning is spelt with a U. We also have a website, goodmourning.com.au, and you can sign up to our newsletter and just see what we're up to. But yeah, those are probably the two main places you can find me. And our book is also called Good Mourning. So yeah, hopefully that helps anyone out there. And if you are grieving, head on over, because there's a whole community there that's ready to support you in your loss.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for popping my cherry. I've absolutely loved this conversation, and I knew that I would. You have such an amazing story of resilience and finding your way through the really murky stuff that life can throw. I absolutely adore you. I think you're a total badass. And I look forward to breathing and doing some work with you soon. But
Yeah.
I think for today, that's been a very good chat.
Oh, thank you so much. And thanks for having me on as your first guest. You're born to do this, so please continue doing this. The world is lucky to have more of Danielle.
Thank you. Bye.
I hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode of Big Stuff as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. Now, if you did enjoy this episode, it would really help me if you wanted to share it with just one person that you think is going to get something out of it. And also feel free to drop a comment. All of these things really help podcasts to gain more ears, and that's what we're really here for. Also, be sure to subscribe, then you will never miss an episode. If you want to find out more about me, who I am, what I do, then you can go and check me out at daniellecolley.com.au. I'll see you next episode for more big stuff.